In a quiet, close-knit town where everyone recognizes each other, a day like any other is about to turn unforgettable. A local cop, known for his rough, discriminatory ways, patrols the streets, unaware of the visitor he's about to encounter. This visitor, a black major general, arrives quietly here for personal reasons, but their paths are destined to cross, and it won't be an ordinary meeting. Tension lingers in the air, as if warning of an incident that will shake this town and everyone watching. Something big is coming, and no one is prepared for what's about to take place. Smash like and subscribe button and comment from where you are watching. Anyways, the cop starts his day just like any other, walking his beat with his usual swagger, eyes scanning the street for anything out of place. He's known in town for his brash, confrontational attitude, especially toward anyone he doesn't like the look of. Locals keep their heads down as he passes, knowing his reputation all too well. Suddenly, he spots a sleek car cruising through the neighborhood, the type that doesn't belong, at least not in his eyes. Without a second thought, he decides to pull it over. No reason, just a hunch, he tells himself. As he approaches the driver's window, his face shifts into a smug smirk, his tone dripping with arrogance. He barks, "License and registration," without a hint of politeness. The driver, calm and collected, hands over his ID. The cop glances at it briefly, not even recognizing the rank, too wrapped up in his own attitude. The exchange is brief but loaded. The cop, full of disrespect, continues in a condescending tone, assuming he's dealing with someone who wouldn't stand up to him. For him, it's just another routine stop. Little does he know, this isn't an ordinary driver. The Major General, sitting quietly behind the wheel, looks up at the cop with a steady, calm gaze. He explains simply and directly that he hasn't broken any laws and is just passing through town. His voice is respectful and measured, showing no sign of anger or irritation. But this calmness doesn't sit well with the cop. Instead of listening, the cop's irritation grows. He taps his fingers on the side of the car, glancing over the Major General with a suspicious, narrowed look. The cop's voice, already sharp, starts to cut even deeper, his words dripping with a kind of anger that feels more personal than professional. "You think you can tell me what's what?" the cop snaps, leaning closer to the window, eyes blazing with an attitude that's hard to ignore. He raises his voice, speaking slower, as if to drive his words home, showing no respect for the man in front of him. "People around here follow my orders. You don't get to act like you're above me." The Major General listens, his expression unmoved, simply meeting the cop's glare. He nods slightly and calmly responds, "Officer, I'm not trying to be above anyone. I respect the law, and I am following it. I'm just here on personal business." But this answer only seems to ignite the cop's anger further. He clenches his fists, steps back, and mutters something under his breath, loud enough for the Major General to hear, but quiet enough to seem accidental. It's a comment that isn't just rude, it's openly disrespectful. For a moment, there's a pause, and the air between them feels thick with tension, the silence carrying weight as if the town itself is holding its breath. The cop finally breaks the silence, his tone rough and cold as he leans even closer. "Don't give me that calm act. I know exactly who you think you are. Folks like you don't belong here, thinking you're better than everyone else." Still, the Major General doesn't lose his composure. He sits up straighter, keeps his voice steady, and looks the cop right in the eye. "Officer, I'm just a visitor here. I mean no trouble." The cop's reaction is almost instant. He lets out a harsh laugh, full of scorn, shaking his head as if he's heard something absurd. "No trouble, huh?" His voice grows louder, his words now a sneering insult. "You think you're some big shot who can waltz into my town and start giving me lessons? I've had enough of your type." It's clear the cop's words are meant to provoke. They're filled with an edge that goes beyond the usual line of duty, crossing into something more personal, almost bitter. The Major General remains silent, his eyes fixed on the cop with a quiet strength. He doesn't respond to the insults. He doesn't let them touch him. He's dealt with men like this before, and knows reacting would only add fuel to the fire. But the cop isn't satisfied with the silence. He leans in again, his face close to the window, voice filled with sneering malice. "Go ahead, say something. Or are you just going to sit there with that 'I'm too good for this' attitude?" The Major General takes a slow, deep breath, keeping his expression calm and his tone steady. "Officer, I've shown you respect from the start. I'd appreciate the same in return." At that moment, something in the cop snaps. He slams his hand on the car door, his face twisted in a scowl. "Respect?" he snarls, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think you deserve respect from me?" The Major General says nothing. He remains silent, his calm demeanor never faltering, even as the cop's words grow harsher, more biting. Each insult, each sneering comment is met with the same quiet strength, as if the Major General is silently standing his ground, refusing to be drawn into the cop's rage. The cop, unable to get the reaction he wants, only grows angrier. His voice shakes with frustration as he spits out his final insult. One meant to cut deep. It's a slur, ugly and sharp, carrying all the prejudice and disdain he can muster. The words hang in the air, a moment of raw, bitter hatred laid bare. But the Major General still doesn't respond in anger. He simply looks the cop in the eyes, his expression unreadable, as if weighing the moment, deciding what it says about the man in front of him. For a second, there's a quiet understanding, as if he sees beyond the rage and the bitterness to the person behind it. Then slowly he says, "I'm sorry you feel that way, officer. But that's not my problem to fix." The cop, taken aback by the calm response, is momentarily speechless. He looks at the Major General with a mixture of anger and confusion, unsure of how to respond. The tension between the cop and the Major General hangs thick in the air. The Major General remains calm, his words steady, but the cop's patience has worn thin. His face flushes with anger, his fists clench so tightly that his knuckles turn white. He's no longer thinking, just reacting. Suddenly, with a swift motion, the cop's fist connects with the Major General's face, a quick, sharp punch that leaves the crowd gasping in shock. Time seems to freeze as the Major General stumbles back slightly, catching himself but never losing his balance. His calm demeanor remains, his eyes meeting the cop's with a quiet, firm stare. He doesn't raise a hand to retaliate, doesn't even flinch. His expression is one of silent strength, as if he's above the chaos around him. Gasps ripple through the small crowd gathered nearby. People who had been watching from a distance now step closer, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Whispers spread as bystanders recognize the Major General, and the weight of what's just happened sinks in. "That's the Major General," someone murmurs, the words barely louder than a breath. Others exchange worried glances, realizing the cop has made a grave mistake. But the cop, oblivious to the reactions around him, smirks with satisfaction. He has no idea who he just punched, only that he's pleased with himself for putting this outsider in his place. His arrogance blinds him, and he doesn't notice the stares of horror and anger from those around him. The Major General stands tall, brushing himself off calmly. There's a moment of silence as he straightens up, his eyes never leaving the cop. His voice is firm, steady, without a hint of fear or anger. "Officer," he begins, his tone respectful yet commanding, "I am Major General Williams." The words are simple, but they carry the weight of authority and years of service, spoken with quiet dignity. The cop's smirk fades instantly. He blinks, his expression shifting from pride to confusion, and finally to shock. He stares at the Major General, processing the words, the rank, the reality of what he's done. It's as if a cold wave has washed over him, leaving him stunned, his face pale. His mouth opens slightly, but no words come out. The crowd, now realizing the gravity of the situation, grows silent. They watch as the Major General continues, his gaze never wavering. "I have served this country with honor and respect," he says, his voice carrying strength and a sense of justice. "And I expected that same respect from those who wear the uniform, as I do." His words are calm but filled with a quiet power, each one striking deeper than any punch could. The cop stumbles back slightly, his pride and arrogance deflated. He looks around at the crowd, seeing their judgmental stares, feeling the weight of their disapproval. His mind races as he realizes the consequences of his actions. This isn't just a simple man he can bully. This is a decorated officer, a leader, someone who commands respect. In that moment, the cop feels small, his authority shrinking under the Major General's gaze. His fists unclench, his posture faltering as he struggles to find something to say, some way to defend himself. But the words escape him, and he stands there, caught in the silence, drowning in his own regret. The Major General looks at him, his expression one of disappointment rather than anger. "You had an opportunity to do what was right," he says softly, each word carrying a weight that strikes harder than any blow. "But you chose disrespect. Remember, respect is earned, not demanded." His gaze holds steady, powerful and unyielding, showing that true strength lies not in anger but in dignity. Around them, the crowd remains still, watching this powerful exchange, feeling the weight of the lesson unfolding before them. For a brief moment, the world seems to stand still as they witness a man of true honor facing a man who has lost his way. The cop swallows, his throat dry, his arrogance gone, replaced by a growing sense of shame. As the Major General turns to leave, he gives the cop one last look, a reminder of the respect and dignity that he upholds, a silent message that real strength comes from within. He doesn't look back as he walks away, leaving the cop standing in the middle of the street, surrounded by his own guilt and the judgment of those who witnessed his downfall. And as he walks, the crowd slowly parts, some stepping forward to pat him on the back, nodding in respect and admiration. They know they've just seen something unforgettable, a reminder that respect is not something taken, but something earned, through honor, integrity, and the courage to stand tall, even in the face of injustice. The cop remains frozen, his gaze following the Major General, his mind replaying the events, realizing the full weight of his actions. In the silence that follows, he's left with only his regret, a reminder of the respect he lost and the man he had foolishly underestimated. As the Major General walks away, whispers spread through the crowd. People murmur in disbelief, shaking their heads and exchanging glances of shock. Slowly, bits and pieces of his identity reach the cop's ears. Major General, highly respected, a leader who served the country with honor. Each word sinks in like a stone, hitting the cop harder than any blow could. He stands there frozen, feeling the enormity of what he's done. Panic begins to claw its way into his chest, his breath coming faster. The reality of his actions hits him like a cold wave, washing away any last traces of arrogance. He glances around, seeing the disapproving stares of those watching, people who once may have feared him now looking at him with disdain. The authority he once wielded feels meaningless, slipping away like sand through his fingers. Sweat beads on his forehead, and his hands tremble. He tries to steady himself, but there's no escape from the realization of the damage he's done. His career, his reputation, all the things he took pride in, now hang in the balance. The weight of his mistake presses down on him, a burden too heavy to bear. Slowly, almost as if in a daze, he takes a step forward, his gaze fixed on the Major General's back. Fear has replaced his earlier aggression, his voice cracking as he calls out, "Wait, sir, please." His words, once sharp and filled with authority, are now weak and pleading. But the Major General doesn't stop, his stride steady, dignified, leaving the cop standing in the wake of his own regret. Desperation takes hold, and the cop moves faster, nearly tripping over himself as he tries to catch up. "I didn't know. I didn't realize," he stammers, his voice growing quieter, almost breaking. He feels small, stripped of the power he once took for granted, facing a man whose calm strength makes his own seem insignificant. The Major General pauses, glancing back over his shoulder, his expression calm, unreadable. The cop's heart races as he meets that steady gaze, a look that holds no anger, only disappointment, a disappointment that cuts deeper than any reprimand could. In that look, he sees everything he failed to be, a reminder of the respect he threw away. The cop's voice trembles as he begins to plead, desperation clear in every word. "Please, sir, I made a mistake," he says, barely able to meet the Major General's eyes. "I didn't know who you were. I didn't mean—" His voice trails off, unable to find the right words to undo the damage he's caused. But the Major General remains silent, watching him with a calm that only heightens the cop's sense of guilt. He realizes that there is no excuse he can offer, no words that can erase the disrespect he showed, the line he crossed. The consequences of his actions loom over him, a shadow he can't escape. Tears prick at the corners of his eyes as he feels his world crumbling around him. The fear is real now, a deep, aching fear that goes beyond losing his job. It's the fear of losing the respect of those around him, of being remembered not as a protector, but as a bully. His voice cracks as he whispers, "Please, don't let this ruin me. I'm sorry, I truly am." The Major General studies him for a moment, his face unreadable, and then gives a single nod. "Respect isn't about knowing someone's rank," he says quietly, his tone firm but calm. "It's about treating every person with the dignity they deserve." His words linger, carrying a weight that sinks deep into the cop's heart, a lesson he should have known but is only now truly understanding. The crowd watches, silent, feeling the gravity of the moment. The cop stands there, his face a mix of regret and shame, his once proud posture deflated. He knows he can't undo what he's done, can't erase the disrespect he showed. All he can do now is stand before the Major General, humbled, his voice a whisper of its former strength as he mutters, "Thank you for teaching me that." The Major General turns without another word, walking away with the same calm dignity, leaving the cop to face his own regret. The cop watches him go, feeling the weight of his actions settle over him, a heavy reminder of the respect he threw away and the price he may have to pay. The Major General, standing tall and calm, faces the cop with a steady gaze. Silence fills the air as everyone waits, sensing something powerful is about to unfold. The cop, now fully aware of his mistake, shifts uncomfortably, avoiding the Major General's eyes, feeling the weight of his actions. But the General's expression is surprisingly calm, his voice gentle yet firm. "You think respect is about rank, don't you?" the Major General begins, his words soft but filled with strength. He lets the question hang, allowing the weight of it to settle on the cop, who looks up, unsure of how to respond. "Respect isn't given because of a title or uniform. It's earned by how you treat others, regardless of who they are or where they come from." The cop's face reddens, feeling the sting of each word, and he's unable to hide the guilt now etched across his face. The Major General continues, his gaze unwavering, holding the crowd's attention as well. "I've worn this uniform for decades, not just to serve those who look like me, but to protect the rights of everyone. Everyone. We're all equal, officer. We all deserve the same respect, whether we wear a uniform or not." He pauses, letting his words sink in. The cop swallows, feeling the weight of the Major General's gaze, and glances at the crowd around him. Their faces reflect a mix of awe and anger, not at the general, but at him, the one who failed to show respect to someone who had given so much. The whispers start to quiet down as all eyes focus on the Major General, moved by the strength in his words. "When I enlisted," the Major General says, his voice steady, "I didn't do it for praise. I did it because I believe in this country and the dignity every person deserves. I didn't just fight for those who wear the same uniform, who share my background, my experiences. I fought so that everyone would feel safe and respected." The crowd nods, many moved by his words, some even wiping their eyes. The cop can barely look up, his face a mix of shame and remorse, as the Major General's words lay out a truth he had ignored. It's as though every sentence is a mirror, showing the cop the ugliness of his actions and the strength of the man he had dared to strike. "Do you understand what that means?" The Major General's tone softens, and he meets the cop's eyes. "Do you see what true respect looks like?" He waits, his gaze steady, as if giving the cop a chance to answer, to truly reflect on his actions. The cop swallows hard, nodding slightly, his voice too choked to respond. He feels small under the gaze of the Major General, and the crowd, humbled by the quiet strength of the man who chose not to retaliate, but to teach him a lesson he would never forget. The Major General nods, recognizing the cop's silence as a sign that perhaps he has finally understood. "In all my years of service," and the General continues, "I've faced situations far worse than this. I've encountered real enemies, men who would do anything to harm me, but you are not my enemy." His voice is calm, gentle even, and it's this unexpected kindness that strikes the hardest. The cop's head hangs low, his pride crumbling as he realizes the honor and dignity in the man he'd treated so poorly. The Major General's words have laid bare the truth. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. The onlookers, deeply moved, watch the cop's humiliation unfold with a strange satisfaction. They see the change in him, the regret on his face, the shift from anger to shame, and they know this moment has changed him. They see it in his posture, the way he stands, shoulders slumped, head bowed, a man humbled by a greater truth. With one last look, the Major General takes a step back, nodding at the crowd, then turns to walk away. He's given his lesson, taught his truth, and in the silence that follows, the cop stands alone, bearing the weight of what he's just learned. Finally, as the Major General goes, his calm yet powerful words echo in everyone's minds, leaving a silence thick with tension. The cop stands there motionless, feeling the weight of his actions settle like a stone in his chest. But the moment doesn't end there. It's just the beginning of what's to come. It was his biggest regret, and now see what actually happened with him. Within hours, the incident is the talk of the town. People whisper in disbelief, retelling every detail. The cop's aggression, the Major General's calm response, the painful truth laid out for all to see. The story spreads fast, jumping from one person to the next, each retelling fueled by shock and anger. It's not just a small-town story anymore. It grows into a wave of outrage, sparking discussions about respect, equality, and the abuse of power. Soon, word reaches the town's authorities, who know they must act swiftly. The mayor, hearing of the incident, immediately calls a meeting with the police chief and town council. They're all too aware of the storm brewing around this officer, and they know that doing nothing isn't an option. They gather in the town hall, voices low and tense, as they discuss the disciplinary actions necessary to restore the community's trust. The cop, once so confident, is now a shadow of himself as he's called in to face his superiors. His heart pounds, his mind racing as he steps into the meeting room. He knows the weight of the Major General's words has caught up with him, and there's no escape. The police chief's voice is stern, unwavering as he lays out the consequences, each word landing like a blow. The cop is stripped of his duties, told he will face suspension, and that his actions will remain on record. The room falls silent as the cop stands there, absorbing the reality of his punishment. For the first time, he feels the gravity of the situation, not just as an officer, but as a person who had failed to respect another human being. The regret he feels is overwhelming, a heavy burden he'll carry for a long time. Outside, the community is abuzz with talk of the incident. People gather in coffee shops, on street corners, in their homes, discussing what happened, each person affected in their own way. Parents talk to their children about respect. Teachers use it as a lesson in equality, and others reflect on their own actions, wondering if they too have failed to show others the respect they deserve. The cop's actions have become a turning point for the town, a moment that forces everyone to take a closer look at themselves. Meanwhile, the Major General leaves the town quietly, his purpose fulfilled. He doesn't seek recognition or attention for what he did. He only hopes that his words will spark change. And they do. His calm dignity, his powerful reminder of equality, lingers in the air, a lesson that refuses to fade. He may be gone, but his words stay, resonating with the people, influencing their thoughts, their actions, and their view of respect and justice. In the days that follow, the story continues to spread, reaching neighboring towns, capturing attention on social media, and sparking debates far beyond the small town where it happened. The cop's disgrace becomes a lesson in humility, a reminder that respect and equality aren't just words. They are principles that must be lived and upheld. And so, the town changes. Conversations grow deeper, people become more mindful, and a renewed sense of respect fills the community. All because one man, with his quiet strength, reminded them of the importance of seeing each other as equals, of treating one another with the dignity that every person deserves. As we close this story, let's take a moment to reflect on the power of respect and the impact of our actions. Today, justice reminded us that dignity belongs to everyone, no matter who they are. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, hit that like button, share it with others, and leave a comment with your thoughts. What does respect mean to you? How would you stand up for someone's dignity? Let's spread this message of empathy and make our world a little kinder, one action at a time.